I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, a local Chaldean priest is in trouble with a church leader because he fled violence in Iraq.
I'm Amitha Sharma. California nurses say they need better protective gear and more training to handle Ebola. We'll have a look at the state's readiness, and a rare compromise is leading to more money for affordable housing here in San Diego.
And after the November vote, 7 North County cities will have elected mayors. Does it make a difference? KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. San Diego's Chaldean Catholics say they will go all the way to the Vatican on behalf of a priest suspended today because he fled violence in Iraq without getting permission first. Father Noel Georges was supposed to celebrate Mass tonight at St. Peter Chaldean Cathedral in El Cajon. He is one of just 14 priests serving tens of thousands of Chaldean Catholics who came to the western U.S. from Iraq. Today, a church patriarch in Iraq suspended Father Noel and 9 others because the church hadn't approved their moves out of Iraq. The priests were ordered back. Members of the Chaldean community say they're dumbfounded by the decree. They say Islamic State militants have displaced thousands of Catholics and other religious minorities.
These 10 priests are not sacrificial lambs. We're not going to let them be sent back like cattle to a slaughter, because in Iraq right now, they're slaughtering priests. They're slaughtering people. They're bombing churches.
Margarabo says the suspensions will significantly disrupt services like baptisms, not only here in San Diego, but also in other Chaldean communities across the state. Guilty verdicts today in Washington for 4 former Blackwater security guards accused of shooting more than 30 Iraqis in Baghdad in 2007. The case created an uproar over the use of private contractors in urban warfare. The defense says it will appeal. FBI in San Diego and around the nation is being reminded tonight to stay vigilant after a shooting spree in the capital of Canada. It happened on Parliament Hill. 1 Canadian soldier was killed at a war memorial, and the suspected gunman was killed inside the Parliament building. 2 other people were injured. Canada was already on alert because of another deadly incident this week. It involved a man described as an Islamic radical. PBS NewsHour will have more coming up at 7. Doctors say a Texas nurse who contracted Ebola is now free of the virus, and her co-worker is in good condition. The woman treated the first U.S. patient diagnosed with the disease who died, raising questions about whether hospitals are prepared to handle infectious diseases. Amitha Sharma is in for Peggy Pico tonight. She takes a closer look.
California's nurses say that not one hospital in the state is ready to treat an Ebola patient. Meanwhile, Governor Jerry Brown said officials are working at ensuring medical providers are prepared to handle Ebola patients. Michael Jackson, a UC San Diego ER nurse and vice president of National Nurses United, is here in studio with me, along with Dr. Thomas Novotny, medical epidemiologist who teaches global health at San Diego State University. Michael, how are California hospitals unprepared to treat Ebola?
Well, the CDC guidelines have changed so much over the past few weeks. It takes time to catch up and get the training and get the appropriate equipment. As of yesterday, the new guidelines came out for no skin exposed. So it's an expanded PPD. There needs to be time to train upon this PPD. We're saying that it needs to be robust training with the team approach, you and your buddy. Because no patient is cared for alone. It's a team approach.
And Thomas, what does full preparedness look like for a hospital?
Well, first of all, they have to know the disease and make sure that the staff are fully briefed as to what the risks are, and with the CDC guidelines. Now there's improved protective devices that are being recommended, and better rituals in terms of putting them on and taking them off, and with careful monitoring, overseeing that process. And so there's clear guidelines now that are certainly much more detailed than they were previously. It's not enough to just hand out a brochure or put up a website. It's important to do training that is drilling on these procedures so that they're done correctly.
So there are guidelines. They've recently been issued or updated. How much can one expect uniformity across hospitals given how recent these guidelines were issued?
Well, I think it's up to each hospital to assure that uniformity. They are required under the Joint Commission on Accreditation of Hospitals to do certain things in a uniform way, and Ebola is a reminder that infectious diseases are a threat currently and that they can actually do this correctly. They're not legislated to do this. I mean, CDC's authority is not that of a regulatory agency, but the guidelines are very clear, and I think now people are pretty sensitive to it, so I think we can expect it.
Michael, Governor Brown met privately with nurses and other healthcare providers to discuss Ebola. What was said at that meeting?
Well, the governor assured us that he's going to be in working mode. He's going to be working with health officials from his cabinet to get out some uniform standards and to put California on the forefront. Because, you know, California is the largest state in the nation with its population, and we have the largest amount of nurses, over 400,000 in the state of California. So he assured us that there's going to be some work and some planning that's going to go forward.
So, Thomas, the California Hospital Association disputes this contention that hospitals are not prepared. They say, look, you know, we're prepared for emergencies, disasters, and infectious diseases. We're prepared for this all the time. Does he have a point?
Well, they are prepared, but perhaps they're not prepared enough. And I think, you know, it's important to look back on what went wrong with other places and to make sure that those gaps don't occur here in California. We should be in a leadership position, for sure.
Now, the State Department says the threat or the risk of Ebola in California is pretty low. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think it's pretty low. I think it's pretty low in general. They've taken some steps now to make sure that people coming from West Africa go through certain more standardized screening facilities, and that's going to be good. More than 90% of the visitors will come through those, and they'll be monitoring people more carefully. And I think the projections are it's only going to be 2 or 3 cases, perhaps, that'll get on planes and come to the United States from each of those countries.
And Michael, what's next for nurses in terms of this topic?
In terms of this topic, we're going to still keep pushing our message. We're doing a petition right now on our website, nationalnursesunited.org, to have the president set forth national mandate to hospitals, because like the doctor here says, CDC is not a regulatory body that they cannot force hospitals to comply. That's why we met with the governor, and that's why we're petitioning and sending a letter to Obama, President Obama, to mandate these hospitals to follow the strictest guidelines in order to protect the frontline workers and healthcare workers. That will also protect the public. And you mentioned something about the California Hospital Association saying that they're ready and they feel that they're ready. You know, the California Nursing Association, National Nurses United, we disagree with that because it's like saying a fox is in a hen house and saying everything is going to be okay here. We know it's profit driven here, and they will take the cheapest route. So that's why we're asking our leaders to use their executive mandate to mandate the hospitals to follow the guidelines, not just hospitals, but healthcare systems, because you never know, a patient may not come to an ER, they might go to a clinic.
And we've got to close it there. People can get more information on our website. Michael, Thomas, thanks so much for coming on the program.
San Diego's public safety agencies came together today for training on how to deal with a bullying victim looking to lash out against tormentors and innocent bystanders. KPBS education reporter Matt Bowler joins us from the newsroom. He says this was the first time this kind of training took place.
Police and fire took over Harvey Knox Middle School in Valencia Park. Training on how to deal with a school shooter today. San Diego police and fire honed their skills together, and it was a first.
For the first time, fire department is going to go in with us. You know, you're not going to see the first element that goes into the building will be police. And then as the police department contains the threat in a particular area of the campus, then a second group will come in, police and fire.
The program goes by an acronym BRAVE, stemming from the phrase, when bullying occurs, respond actively and vigorously to achieve empowerment. It focuses on what it means to be the victim of bullying. Today's drill was about what can happen if a victim decides to lash out against their tormentor.
Bullying has led to some sort of an active shooter case. I'm not saying in all cases it does result, but that very small percentage of cases, we know for a fact that there's been violence at the schools as a result of bullying.
Not only did police and fire train, but some students volunteered to portray victims as well. Matt Bowler, KPBS News.
About 24 NFL players are joining a campaign to say no more to domestic violence.
No more boys will be boys.
No more, what's the big deal?
No more, it's just the way he is.
No more, he just has a temper.
This is part of a series of public service announcements premiering during tomorrow night's Chargers game. They were produced by a national group working to end domestic violence. NFL has been criticized for its response to domestic violence among its players. The city of Encinitas is electing a mayor for the first time next month. That means 7 of the 9 North County cities will now have elected mayors. Our North County Bureau Chief, Allison St. John, asks what difference an elected mayor makes.
Encinitas always had a mayor, but till now the job simply rotated, or the city council appointed one of its members. This year, for the first time in the city's 28-year history, 5 candidates are vying for the mayor's seat.
Prepare yourself for being mayor.
At a recent forum, the currently appointed mayor of Encinitas, Republican Kristen Gaspar, made her pitch to the crowd.
As the city's first elected mayor, I will continue to make sure that our budget matches the priorities of our citizens.
There's healthy competition for the mayor's seat, but how much power will the elected mayor actually have?
There will be no difference in the amount of power that the mayor has. We don't have special veto powers, for example, that other strong mayors have.
Gaspar says Encinitas' new elected mayor will not be like the mayor for the city of San Diego, where voters decided to make the jump to a strong mayor system of government 10 years ago. Unlike a strong mayor, who is more like a CEO, mayors in other San Diego cities remain part of their city councils, just one of 5 council votes.
I am currently serving on the city council.
Tony Krantz, a Democratic city councilman and one of Gaspar's main challengers, says having citizens elect their mayor does make a difference.
Yeah, I don't think power is the right word. I think influential. The mayor will have a little more influence. The public does look to the mayor for leadership.
In another North County city, Escondido, a high-profile mayor's race is unfolding that could redefine the community. Democrat and Latino City Councilwoman Olga Diaz is challenging Republican incumbent Mayor Sam Abed, running for his second term.
The mayor has a stronger influence than one vote. Of course, we set the agenda, we lead the city. I work closely with our city manager and city attorney to implement the council goals. My priorities as a mayor has been adopted by the city council. So I created this city council action plan.
Well, the mayor sets the tone for a city.
Diaz and Abed offer very different visions for Escondido. Half the population is Latino, and Diaz believes those residents have been disenfranchised.
I think as the mayor, I'd be somebody who could help Escondido be seen as a welcoming city. And there's a very big difference in personality and character traits between the current mayor and myself. And my approach is more collaborative, taking community feedback, actually not just expecting it, but reaching out to get it.
But 20 miles to the west of Escondido, in Oceanside, Mayor Jim Wood sounds a note of warning for aspiring new mayors.
Basically, if you get elected to a position as a mayor on a council and you don't have the voting majority of, let's say, 3, it's tough.
Wood, a moderate Republican, easily won a 3rd term as Oceanside's mayor in 2012. But he said the council's more conservative majority has stripped his power.
So what they did is they stripped me all my power of everything except running the council on a council evening, and or pulled me off every committee and commission that I sat on, and decided to replace themselves on all those county-wide committees and commissions.
However, this political fate does not deter a young city councilman in the neighboring city of Vista. Democrat Cody Campbell is in the voting minority on his council, but at the age of 28, he's challenging Vista's long-standing Republican Mayor Judy Ritter.
If you look at the history of Vista over the past 16 years that Judy Ritter has been on the council and as mayor, Vista has shown itself to be a city that lags behind our neighbors.
Mayor Ritter is fighting to keep Vista's long-standing Republican leadership. She sees her role as less about power and more about being a figurehead.
I don't see pulling the city in a certain direction. I just see more being a cheerleader for the city and being an ambassador for the city.
This November will show whether the mayor's races in North County bring new blood into the political mix, and if so, what difference that will make. Alison St. John, KPBS News.
Video journalist Katie Shulov helped produce that story. You can find all of our election coverage and a link to our online voter guide at kpbs.org/election. Today, county supervisors gave preliminary approval to buy 345 acres of land as a preserve for an endangered bird. The land is west of Escondido Creek. It will cost the county $4 billion. The area is home to the California gnatcatcher, a bird on the endangered species list since 1993. The final hearing on the purchase is scheduled for December. San Diego City Council gave final approval to a compromise plan for a development fee to fund the city's affordable housing projects. But will it be enough to meet the need? Amitha Sharma has more on the plan.
Joining me to talk about the plan are Bruce Resnick of the San Diego Housing Federation and Matt Adams of the Building Industry Association. Bruce, before we get into this new plan, what is the affordable housing situation in the city of San Diego?
It's pretty dire. In San Diego, we have about 45,000 families that are on a waiting list for affordable housing. And they can be on that waiting list 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And these are really everyday, working families. These are single moms that are, holding down a job. These are our veterans. These are our seniors. So it really is a crisis situation. I think that's one thing that virtually everybody in the city and in the region agrees with, that we do have a housing crisis in San Diego.
Matt, this new plan will double the current fee, which is about 27 cents to a little over $1 per square foot, beginning January 1st. Last year, the council voted on a five-fold increase. The business community didn't like it. The council repealed it. Why do you think this is a good plan?
Well, one, because it's not such a drastic increase in the fee, and it was a five-fold increase on the low end. It could have been as much as 900% increase depending upon the product type, and that is just something that the business community cannot absorb, especially after coming out of what is commonly referred to as the Great Recession. It's something you don't want to do when you're trying to expand and maintain and attract new businesses to San Diego.
How does the business community gauge whether it can absorb such an increase?
Well, everything is based on economics, and it doesn't really take an economic scholar to understand that a 900% increase in a fee, which could run into hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, depending upon the business, that's something that you just can't really absorb.
Bruce, you opposed a previous version of this plan. What has changed?
The big change, really the only change, is that it ended a sunset provision. So the proposal as originally put forward would have doubled the fee, which is just going back to the 1990 levels because it had been halved in 1996 without factoring in cost of living increases and inflation and all that. But it would have only doubled those fees for certain for the next 3 years. But it was exempting certain classes of development like manufacturing, warehouse, and that would have been in perpetuity. And so the way we were looking at it is, you know, again, wanting certainty like the development community, you know, the developers I, you know, work on behalf of affordable housing developers, you know, they look at it and say, okay, we can make, you know, $4 or $5 million extra will go into the housing trust fund, which is important over the next few years. But after that, every year we would have seen about $300,000 a year less than currently because of the exemptions. So we were looking at a situation where 15, 20 years down the line, we could have actually raised less money for affordable housing, and we couldn't stand for that. And so the current agreement, it does include those exemptions because it was decided, this wasn't something we love, but it was decided that certain types of development we really want to promote in the city. And so those are exempted. Those exemptions are permanent. The doubling of the fee is also permanent. So over the next 20 years, we can look and say, we brought in an extra, you know, $25, $30, $35 million for affordable housing locally.
And that's expected to be how much this plan generates? Give
or take, between about $1.6 to $2.2 million extra per year. And what's really important, though, is that money then gets leveraged with state and federal dollars. That's a really important factor to recognize.
And how many homes does that translate into?
It's not a lot. I mean, for considering the need of 45,000, it really is only maybe 20 homes, 30 homes a year with this extra funding. You know, maybe more if we can leverage a little bit more with the federal and state dollars. But we also recognize we are in such a shortfall of affordable homes. There's not going to be a silver bullet. It is going to be, you know, some bigger pots, some smaller pots, but it's really going to be everybody kind of playing a role in addressing this crisis.
So, Matt, the business community does say that it does a lot to create more affordable housing. What specifically does it do?
Well, in terms of money generated, this fee has really been a distraction to a more serious and substantive conversation about the issue of affordable housing. Residential and non-residential development pays anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 per new home to the Housing Trust Fund as part of its obligation under the city's rules. And it's never going to be enough to generate the money that we need to address the problem. If we're going to have a serious conversation on affordable housing, then we have to have an equally serious conversation on a solution. And to raise a fee on businesses that everyone agrees is a drop in a bucket when compared to the need, it deflects from the more realistic conversation we have to have, and that is, how do we generate a significant amount of revenue to address this issue once and for all? How do we look at the regulatory environment and improve that so affordable housing builders and others can bring their products to market sooner and help more people? That's the real conversation we have to have. The linkage fee has prevented that conversation, and now that we have this compromise, we are hopeful that this conversation can broaden in its scope and identify some real solutions to the problem.
And that's a conversation we'll have during another segment. Bruce, Matt, thanks so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next News Hour, we dive into this year's hotly contested races for governor. That's Wednesday on the PBS News Hour.
A correction on our story about the county's plan to buy some open space near Escondido. The price is $4 million for the gnatcatcher. That's with an M. Now let's talk billions with a B. A couple of days ago, we told you about Qualcomm spending $2.5 billion to buy a British semiconductor company. Qualcomm says it will strengthen their presence in the Internet of Things. But you might be wondering, what are they really talking about? The AP's Warren Levinson explains.
Everyday items are getting smarter. Phones, watches, even meat thermometers are quickly joining the Internet of Things.
When I think about the Internet of Things, I can think about these wearables, and this is a thing talking to my phone via Bluetooth, and then it's talking more specifically to an application on my phone. And that application on my phone is taking the data from this and turning it into useful information for me as a consumer.
What would be considered useful information in the Internet of Things? Perhaps the progress of tonight's dinner.
Our first product was the iGrill. It's a Bluetooth-connected grilling thermometer. And then you'll see the graph here showing the temperature progression.
The technology behind it all is known as Bluetooth Smart.
The talking to applications is really the advancement that Bluetooth Smart brought. And we introduced that actually almost 4 years ago. And so virtually every phone, tablet, PC, whether it's an Apple device, an Android device, a Microsoft-powered device, all of those are Bluetooth, we call Bluetooth Smart Ready. They're ready to connect with any Bluetooth device that's really out there.
That's allowed developers to connect things like light bulbs, fans, and music players together with a central controller.
So the Ninja Sphere is the product we're looking at here, and this is a smart home controller. I like to call it the brain for the smart home. You can swipe, turn your lights on and off, swipe across to your fan, turn the fan or your thermostat on. Control your music. This is controlling a Sonos just here. You're able to sort of turn the volume up just with a little air wheel, turn the volume down.
More work is underway. ORT develops Bluetooth-based technology that will even connect dumb items like the coffee pot to the web.
You can build any relations, any links between your devices. When you've got our hub at home, you can connect your Jabon app with your coffee machine, coffee maker, and let our system to prepare coffee for you every morning when you're waking up.
The Internet of Things is getting bigger by the day. Bluetooth SIG, the trade association behind this technology, says 3 billion Bluetooth-enabled units will ship this year alone. Warren Levinson, Associated Press.
Our weather is going to stay a little warmer than normal for the next few days, but look for things to start getting a little cooler by the weekend. 70s along the coast, upper 80s tomorrow and Friday for the inland valleys, then a 10-degree drop on Saturday. Mountain temperatures will go from the high or upper to low 70s, and we're expecting 90s in the desert. Plenty of sun. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.